The last thing I expected when I rushed into the emergency room was to see my 14-year-old daughter writhing in pain, her eyes glued shut by a woman who thought a disabled child's joy violated neighborhood rules. I had sworn to protect Grace from everything: her illness, the world's cruelty, even the loneliness her mother's absence left behind. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment I realized that the true danger had been living just across the street, and no one, not even me, had seen it coming. "Daddy, it hurts. I can't see," Grace whimpered, her voice filled with panic and pain, tears sealed behind eyes that had been cruelly glued shut. The heartless deed, perpetrated by no less than our ruthless HOA president. But what she did not know was this: I'm a cop, and I don't let this kind of thing slide. As my disabled daughter shook in my arms, my heart hurt, but my head, it seethed with anger. Justice would be served on this woman. She would not get away with this. Before you continue reading the whole story, leave a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more gripping stories like this. Please, Daddy. Hurts so much. Can't see anything. Please help me. Grace's small voice trembled with terror. Her tiny hands stretched out blindly, her once sparkling blue eyes shut tight by globs of thick, oozing glue that scalded her skin. She wouldn't touch her face. The adhesive hurt too much. Her body trembled in my arms, and I was utterly destroyed. I have been a police officer for 15 years, but never once, not at any bloody crime scene or frightening case, had I felt this degree of rage. And standing right there in front of us, cool as can be, was Margaret Holloway, our HOA's merciless president. In her hand, a half-empty glue bottle, proof of the brutality she'd just unleashed on a disabled child. "She wouldn't quit playing that awful music," Margaret shrieked, pointing at the adaptive keyboard on the ground beside Grace's wheelchair. "I warned her 3 times. She didn't quit, so I shot for the keys. She moved." "You monster," I snarled, holding in every bit of anger. "She's got cerebral palsy. She can't move fast. She can't get out of the way." Margaret's face changed in a split second. Her skin turned white as a ghost. Her eyes weren't on me anymore. She was staring just beyond me. I turned to see it, my police badge, on the ground. It must have come out of my pocket when I rushed to save Grace. Now she knew. She had just attacked a disabled child in front of a police officer. I didn't know," she stuttered, taking a step back. "Don't. You. Move." My tone was flat, deadly. I scooped up Grace carefully, her body still shaking. "You just assaulted a disabled girl, and I swear your reign over this neighborhood is ending today." That's when I heard the sirens. Mrs. Chun next door had witnessed everything and called 911. As I gently put Grace back into the car, racing to get her to the ER, I could barely catch my breath through the grief. 13 years of procedures, therapies, agony, and now this. But this time, she was not going to endure silently. Justice was coming, and this time it wore a badge. And in spite of the cold glares from strangers, in spite of the gossip behind her back, Grace always smiled. She remained radiant, our little beacon in a dark world. But now, that beacon was dimming, under threat from a callous woman who thought HOA regulations were more vital than a disabled child's fleeting moment of happiness. The hospital air stung my nostrils. The pungent smell of disinfectant blended with the sharper pain in my chest as I observed doctors tenderly wash the glue off Grace's puffed-up eyes. Every cry from her lips hurt my soul. I've raised Grace alone since her mother walked out. Walked out the day she was diagnosed. I took a promise that day to keep her safe, always. And now I felt like I'd let her down. A doctor came over to me, calm, intent, but with an expression that made my gut knot. "I'm Dr. Rivera," she said softly. "We were able to remove most of the glue, but I'm worried about potential chemical burns." My knees went weak. My voice barely came out. Will she be blind?" She put a hand on my shoulder. "We won't know the full extent until the swelling is down. But there is hope. She was able to close her eyes when it occurred. That may have saved her from the worst." I nodded, throat too constricted to speak. Then Dr. Rivera said, even softer, something else. Grace, she said to me that this isn't the first time that woman has harassed her. She talked about destroyed art projects, the ramp you built getting taken away, even threats to have her service dog taken away. I was hot with anger. My daughter had been enduring silently, all to spare me, aware of how much I worked, how little time I could spare to pay attention. Each time she seemed unsure to go out and play, each time her smile was just a shade weaker. It wasn't the ache of her condition, it was fear. Mr. Dennison, Dr. Rivera went on cautiously, as a physician, I must inform you that I've called Child Protective Services. My heart sank. Not because I think you did anything wrong, she said hastily, but to create a case, to document the constant harassment against a vulnerable child. It'll benefit you legally. My training took over, cop instincts over the anguish of a shattered parent. Yes, I declared firmly. Do whatever's necessary. I want every legal avenue available. Then from behind the curtain, a gentle, shaking voice. Dad, are you there? I went to her side. Her eyes were bandaged, her universe now black. Her hand moved out, searching. I'm here, baby, I whispered, taking her hand in mine. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. She stopped, her small voice full of fear. Is Mrs. Holloway going to hurt my music box again? Grace asked, her small voice shaking, filled with fear. It broke me all over again. That little keyboard, it was not just a toy, it was her solace, the only thing that eased her muscles when the pain became too much. And in that moment, something settled deep within my soul. This wasn't just one cruel act. It was a pattern, a cold, calculated pattern of abuse against my daughter, because she didn't fit into one woman's strict, warped idea of a perfect neighborhood. No, Gracie, I said, voice firm and full of promise. She'll never touch you, or anything you love, ever again. I swear it. 3 days went by. Grace was still in the hospital. Bandages had been removed at last, but her eyes were red, raw, and watery. She could hardly see shadows, blurry figures at best. Doctors were guardedly optimistic. But we both knew it was going to be a long, torturous journey back to some kind of normal. I hadn't left her side, other than once, a brief conference with Detective Ramirez, my ex-partner, and now the detective in charge on our case. The list of charges against Margaret Holloway kept growing. Assault of a disabled minor, battery, hate crime, violation of civil rights. Then came a soft knock at the hospital room door. Sergeant Dennis? A familiar voice whispered. It was Officer Jackson, a rookie I'd trained just last year. He looked concerned but respectful, trying not to disturb Grace, who had just drifted off to sleep. Sorry to interrupt, sir, but you need to see this. He gave me his tablet. On the screen was video, grainy but distinct, recorded on a security camera I hadn't even realized was there. One that had just been installed in front of my house, pointed directly toward our yard. My heart constricted as I watched the recording. There sat Grace, sitting there so calmly in her wheelchair, fingers lightly hitting the keys of her special music box. Her face aglow with happiness, even in her suffering. The music was her solace, her therapy. Then came Margaret. She burst into shot like a storm cloud. HOA rulebook clutched in one hand, glue bottle clutched in the other. Her lips moved quickly. Though there was no sound, her lips yelled enough. Furious, bitter, accusatory. I saw my daughter's smile disappear, but she didn't quit playing. She didn't attack. She didn't hurry. She couldn't. All she did was raise her hands, slowly, protecting the keyboard, her most prized possession, from the approaching whirlwind. It wasn't self-defense. It wasn't a misinterpretation. It was evidence. Cold, hard evidence of intentional infliction of injury, assisting me in helping Grace gently out of the car. Her voice shook with emotion. We didn't realize how bad it really was. If we had, we would have complained sooner. I scanned the area. Neighbors who had previously turned away now stood with signs of solidarity. Some held balloons, others flowers. The Johnson children had even sketched chalk hearts all over the sidewalk up to our front door. Grace hugged her music box close to her chest, her eyes slowly blinking at the comforting sight. "Daddy," she whispered, "they came for me?" I crouched down next to her. "They did, sweetheart. They came for you." The days that followed flooded with justice. Margaret Holloway was taken into custody, publicly, and two members of the HOA Board of Directors, who had assisted in covering up her actions. Each of the charges stuck more stubbornly than the previous one. Assault, violations of civil rights, hate crimes, even conspiracy against an impaired minor. The courtroom was filled to capacity on the day of the initial hearing. I stood there in uniform, not as a vengeful father, but as a police officer who wanted justice. Grace sat in the gallery next to Mrs. Chun, who now volunteered every day to assist in caring for her. She wore oversized sunglasses and clutched her rebuilt keyboard in her lap. She didn't shed tears when Margaret was denied bail. She did not blink as the charges were being read to her. She simply leaned forward and whispered, "Daddy, I'm brave." And she is. This is more than a tale of cruelty. It's a tale of survival, of a child who hung on to happiness even when confronted with despair, of a neighborhood that finally stirred to life, and of a father who once vowed to serve the public, struggling more than ever to serve the one person who mattered most. This was never about HOA regulations or music or glue. It was about what kind of community we want to be, and how far we're willing to go to serve those who can't always serve themselves. I looked down at her eyes still hurting from sunlight, her hand warm in mine. "It's a lot," I said softly, "but no amount of money can repair what she did. What's important is that the court heard you, that people noticed the truth, and now she can't hurt another person." Grace nodded slowly. "I don't want her money. I just want kids like me to feel safe." And in that moment, I understood just how powerful my daughter actually was. Epilogue. Grace started to use her experience as a voice. With assistance from some understanding teachers and community leaders, she developed a program entitled Keys of Kindness, wherein she played music and shared her experience at schools and community centers to promote awareness of disability rights and bullying. She even won a local award for youth advocacy. As for me, I was reassigned to a new division dedicated to community outreach and special needs activism in the police department. Assisting others became more than my responsibility. It became my mission. Our new house was bright, with music and the occasional off-key stroke of Grace's continuously changing compositions. And with each time she played, I remembered, even in the presence of cruelty, joy can persevere. Even when the world attempts to shade her light, Grace shines regardless. Because this isn't merely her tale. It's a tale of a girl who wouldn't quit smiling, a father who wouldn't quit fighting, and a town that finally learned what it was to stand up for what is right. That. She had taken pain and turned it into activism, fear into motivation. Before the court, the media, and a sea of strangers, she had stood as a symbol, not of what was stolen from her, but of what she would not give up. Her joy, her voice, her music, and her right to simply exist. The judge's gavel came down, but in my heart, the true verdict had already been passed. Hate lost. Love prevailed. As we emerged from the courtroom, reporters yelled questions, cameras popped. But all Grace was concerned with was the little girl sitting in the front row with her mother, a girl in a pink wheelchair who smiled shyly and held a homemade sign that said, "Thank you, Grace." Grace rolled over, grasped her hand, and simply said, "You're not alone." And in that moment, I knew this was only the start. Grace's story wasn't merely one of survival, it was a call to action, a beacon of hope for families like ours. We didn't merely win a case, we ignited a movement,